Let's reclaim our brain. I'm Joseph, this is Input English. This channel is all about comprehensible input. As a part of creating this content for people to improve their listening comprehension and their speaking ability, I include content that talks about the practical aspects of language learning. Things that I've learned from experts, things that I have done myself to learn language. So I'd like to talk about some interesting aspects of this topic today. How do we reclaim our brain? First of all, we need to recognize that as human beings, our brain evolved for survival. One of the major aspects of survival is avoidance of being killed, avoidance of risk. So we had to evolve an early warning system to alert us to danger. It only makes sense that this early warning system that evolved in our brain would override things that we're already doing. Picture an ancient ancestor applying a painting to a rock when something very dangerous and very threatening happened. He or she would have to have dropped everything in order to preserve life and limb. We should recognize that this adaptation of the human brain, this evolution, occurred over millennia, and it does not boil down to one gene. However, for concise expression of a thought, I'm going to refer to the OLS gene. Bear in mind, there's not one gene called the OLS gene, but it's useful for our discussion. We actually evolved to be very distractible. No matter how focused we would be on a given task, our brain is programmed to be very distractible. So what are the things that distract us from what we're doing? Sudden movement, bright lights, a change in the light, bright colors, and sudden noises. These are things that trigger our brain's innate distractibility. And in terms of survival, they have been very powerful. If we have these innate distractibilities, then what could it hurt? So what if we have an OLS gene? What can it hurt? Well, it can hurt our ability to do deep work. It can hurt our ability to get things done that require concentration and effort. Have you ever been working on something that requires concentration and you get a text message or an email? In the 21st century, these distractions are very real. Now, I'm not going to suggest that there is some sinister plot, some conspiracy designed to prevent us from learning languages, but we should be aware that other people know about our collective susceptibility to distraction. Where do you see this? In all forms of marketing. When you go into a grocery store, the breakfast cereals are not packaged in brown paper bags. They use bright colors, attractive pictures, and quick, easy to read slogans that push your buttons. Marketing is designed to manipulate us to change our behavior. Major corporations employ psychologists to help with these marketing efforts. There's a lot of money at stake, and so these commercial entities put their resources into making their marketing more effective. In the online environment, we see this in full display. Lots of attractive images, quick, easy to read, attractive slogans, statements that are designed to capture our imagination or our attention. I would submit that the online environment is one of the most distracting places you could go. That said, I don't want to give that up. I find it very useful, but I want to retain some degree of control. I want to use the online environment as a tool to get what I want. I don't want to be enslaved by it. So what is this OLS gene I mentioned? Well, first of all, I disclosed that it's a construct. It's a fiction for our discussion. What it stands for is, oh look, shiny. And that's my shorthand for any time I'm in the online environment and my attention is captured intentionally by some sort of content. If I'm trying to get some information and my eye is captured by a thumbnail, I need to decide whether I want to look at that material or move on. Avoid having my attention captured over a period of time. I think the insight about this OLS phenomenon is helpful to avoid getting captured by other people's clever tricks. Oh, look, shiny. We just need to understand there are a lot of attractive things being put in front of our nose. And then we have to decide how we respond. So how do we respond? If we're trying to get a lot of comprehensible input and we go online to find that, and we make ourselves susceptible to a lot of distractions, how do we handle that? Well, there are some options. Let's go through them. Number one, let's set priorities. Is it really our priority to click on a lot of random YouTube videos on a variety of subjects for entertainment? Or is it really our objective to get an hour of comprehensible input? Now, I'm not in charge of your decision. That is for you to decide. But if you set your priority, then that can give your brain some guidance how to deal with these distractions. Number two, turn off unnecessary distractions. I do this for sure. On my smartphone, my mobile device, I turn off notifications. I know where the email is. I know where the text messages are, but I turn off the notifications because I want to be in control of how often I check. At the point where you set priorities, you can give some thought as to how often you need to check for new text messages. You can decide how often to check for new emails. By shutting off notifications, I got rid of a lot of distractions. Now, there's another kind of notification that doesn't come from without, it comes from within. It's like a hunger in us to find out if we have a new text message or to find out if we've received a new email. So there is a psychological source of notifications that comes from in here. And it takes a little effort to shut that off, to reason with yourself and decide, is it important to check your email 25 times a day? Or would it be sufficient to check your email every day or so? And number three, habits. I have several videos that talk about the relationship between willpower and habits and how willpower can be depleted, but if you use your willpower to build habits, habits are much more durable. That can be a very good thing for language learners. That really was the key to my success in acquiring Spanish. I simply built a habit of an hour a day in the morning over breakfast and coffee. I had a long commute, so that became another hour of input. In the evening, I got at least an hour instead of television and web surfing. So I didn't find it terribly difficult to get 3 hours a day. I wanted 4 hours a day, so it only took a little bit of effort to increase the easy 3-hour goal to a more desirable 4-hour goal. Now, habits can be very positive like that, but they can also be very negative. And I had to break some habits in order to attain success. I habitually checked my email too often. Given my career requirements and my personal needs, it's really not necessary for me to check my email more than once or twice a day. I had a habit of spending a lot of time watching the news. The past couple of years, the news cycle has been very rapid-paced and very unusual. Lots of things are happening all over the world and in the United States. I found it very easy to get sucked into the news and spend quite a bit of time and absorbing information being fed to me by news agencies. One of the things I needed to do was cut way back on my consumption of daily news. Now, a good citizen needs to be informed. I'm not suggesting that we completely cocoon ourselves and separate from the world. We need to be aware of what's going on in order to be good citizens. But we don't have to spend hours each day watching the news. I was talking months ago to a friend of mine, and the topic of language learning came up in discussion. He asked me what I did, and I told him, and his response was very sincere and logical. He said, "Oh, I could never do that." And then, without me prompting him, he went on to explain that he and his wife really enjoy watching a number of television shows in the evenings. He estimated that he watched 2 hours of television each day. Now, I don't bring this friend of mine up to ridicule him or make him appear to be foolish. He makes his choices, and his choices are his and his alone. I only bring it up to showcase how priorities manifest in our day. His priority is watching television. My priority was getting input. But because these priorities manifest and duplicate day after day, week after week, month after month, they make big changes over time. I would submit that we can reclaim control of our brain. We should recognize our inherent distractibility. We should recognize that people are trying to distract us to change our behavior for their purposes. We can establish a great deal of control by setting priorities. Our willpower is very limited, so ideally we would use our willpower to build good habits and get rid of bad habits. And then over time, we should occasionally look at what we're doing to see if it conforms with our priorities. If we set a priority to get 2 hours of input per day, a month from now, looking back, the question is, did you do it? So let's look at that scenario hypothetically. Let's say you set a priority of 2 hours per day, and then a month from now you look back and you only got 1 hour per day. What I am not suggesting is that you heap guilt on yourself and negative feelings about this. No. Instead, I suggest that you use that as an opportunity to adjust your behavior. You could adjust the goal, or you could adjust your daily routine so that you attain that goal. This reminds me of a term created by NASA. The U.S. Space Agency, NASA, had a problem similar to this when they were sending astronauts to and from the moon. When the Apollo space capsules were traveling to the moon and returning from the moon, they were traveling very fast and over a very long distance. The engineers realized that their calculations needed to be updated during the trip. And so part way back from the moon, for instance, they would take stock of where the capsule is and how it is traveling. And then sometimes they would make a change which they called a mid-course correction. That is, they would fire a rocket motor to change the direction of the space capsule. These corrections were very small, but they were very important because of the long distance they were traveling. If the capsule was off by a fraction of a degree, over 250,000 miles, that capsule could easily miss the Earth and fly off into outer space. So these corrections for space travel were very important, and they illustrate what I am suggesting here. If we decide what we want, we implement a plan, then we should look back to see how that implementation went. And we might need to make a mid-course correction so that we arrive at our destination. For me, I wanted to be proficient in Spanish. I consider proficiency a waypoint on the way to fluency. Then the question for me along the way was, am I on track to get what I want? Or do I need to make a change? Based on these periodic lookbacks, I did make changes. My goal here was not to dictate behavior to people who watch these videos. I am trying to generate thought on these topics so that people can make good decisions based on their own needs and their own priorities. I invite comments below, and if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.